build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Oh, well, they gave me ball, but I can see between to a dusty yard and a long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I've drowned my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone. I'm sober as good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers. Matty joined tonight by Colin and John as normal, but also special guest Davie Farrell. Davie, come you first. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Aye, everything's okay. Obviously, the weather was a wee bit hot today. I was at Andy's memorial service this afternoon, and that was obviously it was actually quite a nice occasion. A lot of people said a lot of really nice words for him. So, other than that, just working away in a taxi and getting to watch some football.
Happy days. Well, not all happy days, but happy days with the good parts of that. Colin, how are you doing?
Aye, good, mate. I'm just drying out at the moment and just a bit moist. The last
few excited.
Someday we just had a.
Is that no one of the forbidden words on a podcast?
Moist. There's
many female listeners, were there?
One of our listeners, Oscar Ramage, actually tweeted just before we started, just said he's jealous of Prince Andrew and his inability to sweat. And I get how he feels tonight. John, what about you? How you doing?
Aye, surviving.
With your power cuts in Livingston?
I don't know. It just came on earlier, and I think I just assumed that there was a power line down or there'd been a transformer blown up because of the heat or whatever. But 2 or 3 times it went off, it came back on. So touch wood, it stays on.
If you disappeared mid-episode, we came. What's happened?
Aye.
No worries. Okay, right. So the nuts and bolts of tonight's episode, we're going to talk about Falkirk was it last Tuesday night?
Tuesday night, aye.
And then a bit about the Bonnyrigg game, which was yesterday, and then we'll talk to Davie about his time at Hibs, his football career, and also his book. So starting off on Falkirk, then Davie, what did you think of the game?
For a lot of it, pretty disappointing. I expected them to really, kind of come out the traps. New manager, looking to impress, good crowd, great away support. And for the first 45 minutes, to be perfectly honest, they were sand dancing about. It was all wee flicks, and I think they thought they just had to turn up. Showed quite a poor attitude. Falkirk got right in about them, played very well, got their tackles in, which a lot of the Hibs players didn't seem to take to. And I thought that Falkirk really probably deserved to win the game, although Hibs started to put a bit of pressure on in the second half and probably should have equalised with the chances that they had. I think for Falkirk's endeavour and the fact that the gap between the two teams, I think they probably deserved to just nick it. But I was really disappointed in the attitude of quite a lot of the Hibs players, if I'm being honest.
John, we looked at the starting lineup, so we had a brand new defence, but the thing that probably drew the most attention was the midfield three of Campbell, Doyle Hayes, and Joe Newell.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I mean, on the face of it, it looked very well balanced. Obviously, with Campbell sitting and Doyle Hayes on one side and then and Newell on the other side, that should be a perfect midfield three. But it didn't really work in the first half. And as I say, I think it mainly was down to the fact that Falkirk just got in their faces. And they didn't seem to have an answer for that, which I know it's very early in the season, but it's worrying when players don't like that wee bit of aggression, and other people in their faces. Newell, I think, is a terrific football player. I really like him. He's a wee short fuse as well, He seems to lack a wee bit of discipline at times. Listen to me saying that. But I just got disappointed because I thought they should have dominated the ball better. And there wasn't that much creativity about it until really about 20 minutes to go when they should have scored with some of the chances they
had. Colin, looking at the reaction to the game on the message boards, the Hibs net and the bounce, that was... there was like kind of folk talking about us being bottom six material again and all this sort of stuff. And do you think that performance was indicative of how the season's going to go?
No, I don't. It was last year's team. which was a bottom six team. There wasn't many changes because of the work permits, and Marshall was on the bench as well, wasn't he?
Mm.
So I think it was a performance for last season. This season, same players, same result.
I think that's why folk went so mental about it, just because it was so much of the more of the same.
Aye, I do, because we all moaned about that three in the midfield last year, didn't we? Because Doyle Hayes and Newell, they get in each other's way. Like they're good players when the other one's not playing with them. Like when they're on their own. Like you seen Newell yesterday, and Doyle Hayes we've seen flashes of as well. But the two of them together, they just get in each other's way. So it was the same. It was the same as last season. Just no threat. We should have scored some right enough, but I mean, Dodge's finishing something else. It's like he just makes it look so difficult all the time. It's just, it was just disappointing. I mean, because it puts us in a shite position for the rest of the group. Because if Falkirk win the last two games, we're the only hoping for a runners-up spot, and then we'll be unseeded in the last 16 or the last 8. Well, the last 16.
Last 16, I think.
16, I think it is.
Aye. So that's the shiteness of it. Again, like even if we'd got a draw and then sneaked away with penalties, then we would have been in a better position. But to lose, we'll still qualify, I think. But just in a shite position on the other end of it because of it.
It's early as well, isn't it? I mean, it's really early in the season. Yeah. And as you say, it's a lot of players for last year. You've got to hope that the players that Johnson brings in are going to make a bigger difference than what it looked like in that first game.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that anyway, that appointment, Lee Johnson?
I think we're quite happy with it. I wasn't sure at first. If I'm totally honest with you, Dave, I didn't know that much about him when he came. It's only when he arrived to start to kind of dig around and see what he'd been up to. And then he did a podcast with us and the other Hibs podcasts, and he came across really well in that. And I think since then he's come across pretty well in everything that he's done. Quite like what he says. The proof of the pudding's on the pitch, though, isn't it? That's really
absolutely.
It just remains to be seen with it.
Yeah.
John, I'll come to you with the defence that lined up for that game. So we had Stevenson, McClelland, Rocky, and Miller there playing in front of Dabrowski in goals. Do you think that was a mistake by Johnson to place that defence for the first time together like that?
Was that the back four? I've had to obliterate it from my memory because I got that angry after the game. I thought the first half was terrible. I thought it was just absolute shit. And I had a long rant in the car on the way back to Livingston afterwards, just about how there was something that had really, really annoyed me in particular, and it was Lee Johnson when he talked about looking into the history of the club, and he was able to reel off a couple of things. But he seemed to have ignored recent history, and the recent history that we're talking about was the midfield three, and just I wouldn't say that he was arsing about with his team selection, but I didn't understand why he played that team first half, because he talked about it after the game. He said there was a lack of familiarity there, and there was just a total lack of fluency, and there was a total lack of tempo that we'd seen in the game against Clyde, where everyone was sat back kind of rubbing their hands thinking, brilliant, this is a season that we've got to look forward to. And it was just the complete opposite of it. I think had Falkirk snuck a goal and we'd put in a decent performance and we'd had the shitey luck that we'd had in the second half, I don't think you would have had the booing for the Hibs fans that you got at the end. But the performance of the first half set the tone for the whole 90 minutes. So it didn't matter it didn't matter how many times we hit the post or went close. Just furious. And I'm not, you'll know me, for speaking on the podcast before, I'm not one who's given to talking about being angry at Hibs. I'm usually trying to find the defensive angle. I was really fucked off.
It's a pre-season. It was treated as a pre-season game, though, wasn't it? Because it is early, like Davie said, it. They're saying no treating it pre-season because it's the cup and we've had a good record in it in terms of distance in it anyway in recent years. But try to give everybody a game.
Aye, and I don't disagree with that approach. I just wonder if he should have done it back to front. So gone with the strongest team in the first half and put the second string out on what he thought was being the second string second half. And I know that's with the benefit of hindsight, but I think I've seen Hibs play cup competitions before where they've put out a weakened side. I know this is probably ancient history for a lot of people, but I remember when Hibs went. I want to say it was. I think it was Clyde at Broadwood, and they dropped Latapi, they dropped Soze, and they brought like in a whole bunch of other players, and we huffed and puffed our way to 120 minutes plus penalties. It just reminds me of that, and I'd like to think that we've progressed since then. But that's what I was talking about in terms of like recent and ancient history. Like, just go out and win the game.
Aye. Do you mind Heckenbottom did it? He came in for criticism in the same competition. I can't remember who it was, like Stirling or somebody we went to penalties with. I can't remember if they beat us in the shootout, if we won the shootout, but it was a game that we should definitely have won, and folks slaughtered them. But I think we got to the semi-final that year. Ironically, got sacked right after because Celtic lost us in the semi. But it's just one of these things. I think like the team that he put out should have been good enough to beat Falkirk. I mean, that's like kind of the nuts and bolts that you look at. Falkirk are lining up, and no disrespect to them, but you've got players there that didn't cut it at Hibs, you know, like, and they've been replaced by players that played against them, and maybe they had a wee bit of point to prove or whatever, but Hibs should have had enough no matter what team Johnson put out to win that game. David, see when you're in a game like that and you go into half time, what are you looking for the manager or for your colleagues in the dressing room?
Different managers give you different things in games like that, just depending on the type that they are. You know, you'll get some managers that will come in and rant and rave and throw things about and look for a reaction that way, and you'll get other managers that will come in and, you know, sit people down and be calm and try and be collected in what he's going to say, and make sure that his points are, you know, relevant and really important. Some people react well to one and some people react well to the other, so it's really difficult to get a balance there. But in my experience, most managers after a first half like that would come in and have a wee go anyway. Mm-hmm. I would be very surprised if he didn't. Although again, it's early in pre-season, you know, although it's a League Cup. But I mean, I think as well, sometimes managers in situations like that can lay down a marker. You know, they can make sure that the players know that kind of performance for the first 45 minutes is unacceptable, and he's not going to tolerate it for any longer. Mm-hmm. You know, they know then that, well, okay, we're not going to give him too many of these kind of performances, you know. But I don't know what Lee Johnson is like. I don't know if he's that fiery character, or if he's the thinker that will want to sit down and be calm with them and say, you know, like, let's get together here and tweak it and change it and whatever it is he wants to do.
What sort of angry in the post-match? Sorry, John. The post-match, he did seem quite angry, so I took for that he maybe had a wee go. Half time he didn't change the midfield, interestingly though. That was the same midfield in the second half. Yeah. That's what everybody was moaning about. That's what stayed the same. It was everything else that got changed.
What I was going to ask, Davie, was what approach from a manager did you respond to? Was it the hairdryer treatment, or was it the arm round the shoulder?
No, I responded to the hairdryer. Definitely. Alec Miller wasn't really a hairdryer type as such, but he could lose it now and again. Alec McDonald was a hairdryer. You know, he, no matter what, when I was at Airdrie, he was the type of guy that would have not accepted that, not tolerated that in any way whatsoever. But Alec Miller was more of a kind of methodical coach, a thinker. So he would have been more inclined to sit people down, try and explain to them what he really wanted, and at the same time look to give a wee kick up the arse, you know. And at that time we had Jockey Scott as well. Jockey was helping Alec, and Jockey was a fiery character. So if Alec was going to do one, then, you know, one had the feather duster and one had the knuckle duster. And it just depended on which one started doing what road, you know. Sometimes I had to do that myself and all with Alex. Sometimes, you know, that Alec Ray, when I was an assistant manager, you would maybe gauge the reaction that he got or whatever he done, and if he went mental at players, it then became my job sometimes to go out and, you know, put my arm around them again and go, listen, sorry, just give what you can give in the second half, you know, do a wee bit better and put the arm around them. Or if Alec has maybe came in and been the calm one, and I'll maybe go over and say, come on, fuck you, get your finger out. This isn't acceptable, you know, that kind of thing. So there's a balance here as well. I'd imagine that somebody would have to do that in a situation where you've not played well for 45 minutes. But definitely, me personally, I responded to getting a boot up the backside. You
ever have it where you, as a player, you want to go in and have a go at your teammates? When you've had a performance like that, you kind of go in and pull somebody up for it?
Oh, definitely, definitely. definitely. I've seen many a square up in dressing rooms at half time. There's an old myth about there was always fights in dressing rooms and all that. There wasn't. Very, 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 very rarely did anything ever get to the physical level. But quite often you'd be face to face with somebody. Come on, fuck you, get your finger out. I'm trying to pull this and I'm doing that, and you're not moving, and you're a lazy bastard, and this is happening and that's happening, and that can sometimes be the guy then wants to have a go at you. Somebody splits up. 2 minutes later, the two of you are out in the park, and you're going hell for leather against your opponent. So that kind of thing can work as well. But definitely, plenty of times I've came in dressing rooms and had it myself and had a go at others.
You sounded like my wife there. I've heard that conversation before. Colin, what did you think of the reaction in the second half in the game? Do you think the changes worked?
Oh, we're better in the second half. So, they worked, I suppose. But well, did they? We were better. We didn't score. We still got beat. So they probably worked, but not as much as we wanted them to work. Aye, to answer the question, aye. That's it.
It looked like there was definitely a reaction.
Aye. It was funny though, because it was the midfield that were getting hammered there. That was it. It was just because that was the same as last year. But he didn't change that till really late on. Was it like 85, 86 minutes he brought that?
I think it was 85th minute that Kenner come on. I can't remember who it was that he replaced.
For the first half, there was no area on the park that was functioning. Like there just was. You could look like Deutsch was completely anonymous. Was it Hoggett and
even Stevenson wasn't good, by the way.
Aye.
And you do say that very often. Tuesday, sorry.
McGeady didn't do anything. I like to say Stevenson was off it. The midfield were anonymous. They just looked like a bunch of guys that had never played before. But then that was probably the case with some of them, innit? So
did McGeady play yesterday? Aye. I thought it looked as if he was struggling a wee bit on Tuesday night, as if he wasn't quite fit, wasn't quite at it. I wondered if he'd had a wee niggle, but if he played yesterday, then clearly not.
They said when he signed, he hadn't played a lot of football in the last 6 months. I think they're kind of bringing him in sort of gradually, but he played all right yesterday.
He should be a good signing.
Fresher yesterday than he did on Tuesday, but everyone looked poor on the Tuesday, particularly that first half, and I think he was one of the ones that got subbed at half time and replaced.
He should be a good signing though. He's got quality. He should definitely be a good signing.
I think so. We did an episode last week. It's kind of ironic, right? So we do 2 episodes, David, just to give the context. We always do this one, right, which is Longbangers, which goes out free to everybody, and then we've got a subscription offering as well. So we do an extra episode. And
so are you telling me they're not paying for this one?
This one's free. This is we put the good stuff out free.
It's the draw folk in.
To draw folk in, and then they realise they get it. They go, "Fuck! I've paid £3 for this shite." That's what happens. No, and we try to make the other stuff good as well, right? To be honest, but the whole episode was around how Lee Johnson had sort of brought the feel-good factor back to Hibs, and then Tuesday night happened, and I think we actually mentioned. And John and Colin, I don't know if you can remember that it was sort of precariously balanced, that feel good. It wouldn't take much to knock it. And I think we saw that on Tuesday. So, John, how damaging do you think it was to that sort of morale around the club that we took a performance in a defeat like that?
What do you mean? I know it's cost Hibs at least one season ticket. I messaged you about the guy that I bump into sometimes when I'm out walking the dog, and he's been bending my ear for about the last 2 years about how poor Jack Ross was and how shit Sean Maloney was. And after the pre-season games in Portugal and the Clyde game, that was him. He was on the phone. I'm trying to get a ticket. I'm trying to get a season ticket, but it's constantly engaged. And he said, they better win against Falkirk, or that'll be me. I'll be able to slit my wrists again. Sure enough, I bumped into him. He was on his way back for a concert in London or something. He said, that was fucking shit. I'm not going to buy a season ticket now. So I think that's how precariously balanced it is.
It's crazy. What about you, Colin? What did you think of the reaction to it?
That's why I was kind of saying, like, we've won a couple of pre-season games. Let's just not get too carried away. We've signed a load of boys that can't play yet. We don't know how good we're going to be. I know we're going to predict after this where we're going to finish in the league and that, but it's like it's too early. It's too early to say now. I don't know. It just allowed the noise to come back. It was kind of going away a wee bit.
and
it's just allowed it to come back. That's what it done. So hopefully, win the next couple of games, and everybody can shut their fucking mouth again.
Fingers crossed. Davie, you played obviously in Hibs sides when Alec Miller was there, and it wasn't always like a happy connection between the team and the fans. I think in that era, like Miller was sort of he split some of the sections support, but they had some good teams. Did you notice it as a team when the fans weren't with you as much as maybe they could have been?
I think it's kind of indicative the way Colin said it there. There's a fickleness about almost every football fan. Don't think that it's exclusive to Hibs.
Mm-hmm.
Every single club I went to, and I'm honestly, this is the God's honest truth, as a player and a coach, every club I went to, the first thing that people say to you is, fans here are fucking murder. Honestly, every club, every single club. And then you get to a club and you enjoy your time there, and you get to realise that they're all the same. They all just want to win. They all just want their club to be successful. And they go through peaks and troughs. They go up and down. They go through wee phases where you think that the world's going to end because they've lost a couple of games and you're getting booed off the park and the manager's a prick and you're a prick and everything else that's going along with it. And then you win a couple of games again and everything's great. I think that's just the nature of being a football fan, is it no? But no, definitely that at that time, Hibs fans had never really accepted Alec Miller for some reason. I could never really work out what it was, because we had a really decent team at that time. You know, we were finishing up in the top sort of 3 or 4 most of the time each season. He's had a couple of good European runs, 2 cup finals, cup semi-finals, and we were regularly competing with Celtic and Rangers as well. So it was a strange one. I think the Rangers thing was always something that was kind of thrown at him. I think that was something that some fans never really accepted. But it was a strange thing, because there was definitely a tendency, it seemed to be, that the players didn't really get it, but the manager got it, which is unusual. If a support kind of turns on the club, the players will get it, the manager gets it, the board gets it, everybody gets it. But at that time, it seemed to be that Alec was the one that was the kind of fall guy for some reason.
I can mind that sort of if going into that time, and it was really, I think the only players that kind of really stuck out as having got it was Joe Tortolano used to get it tight, and Brian Hamilton got it tight.
Yeah.
But other than those two, I can't really mind anybody being like a real proper.
No, that's right.
Fall guy.
I mean, definitely. They two were the kind of fall guys. But other than that, most of us were treated like heroes. I mean, I was there for 7 years, and I probably only played about 100 games, but I felt as though I was some kind of a cult hero or something. I don't know. I managed to endear myself to the fans somehow. Even now, I mean, I can still go through Easter Road now, and it's brilliant. You get treated really well. Fans always say hello, and you have a good wee bit of banter with them. I still find it quite amazing, actually, that there's still people that want to, even like things like this, want to talk to me and want to hear my story,
That's a good thing. We'll move on quickly to Bornag, because you never saw much of the game.
We'll not
spend too much on Bornag, but we'll speak to John and Colin. So, Colin, you were at the game. What did you think of it overall?
It was a wee bit like a pre-season game with a couple of meaty tackles in it, as I would sum it up. We're much better than them. Like, what was it, 4-1 in the end, but missed penalty. McGeady missed a penalty. David, absolutely fucking penalty. Miles away target. I was behind the goals at the other end. I was like, fucking hell, how did he manage that?
Did he hit you with it?
He done one of the. No, it was nearly in my back green. He wasn't a great penalty, but so what was it? Newell was really good. Henderson, they both had good games. I thought Melkerson came on to a game later on, and Kenna was decent. Defence didn't really have much to do. Marshall couldn't have saved their goal. It was a cracking finish for the boy for that. Poch just got turned inside out by the boy, the way.
He was poor for that.
But it was quite comfortable. Early goal, 2 minutes, kind of settled the nerves. If the penalty had went in, we'd have probably won a lot more comfortably than 4-1. I think because the penalty was early doors as well. It
So I think within the first 10 minutes, I think he would have been 2-0 up inside about 10 minutes. I think that we would have walked the rest of it.
Aye. But it was all right. They're not a bad side, I think. Bonnyrigg. I think they might give Falkirk a fright. They're playing them this midweek as well, up at Bonnyrigg as well. So that's your hope there. They win in the group if they can do us a favour, even if they take the penalties or something. I suppose might help us. But it was just comfortable. It was the strongest team probably picked that's available again because we've still got 3 guys waiting on permits.
Yes.
So it was the strongest team, so it kind of showed intent there and done the job.
John, do you think the club's on a wee bit of hiding to nothing in a game like that?
Aye, because I think the expectation from a lot of people is that if you're playing a lower division team, you're just going to pump them 10-0. And if you didn't beat them 10-0, then it was a shite performance and people get antsy about the rest of the season. But we beat them 4-1. And it wasn't the most entertaining game, but we beat them, and that was what was required.
Did you ever have games like that, David, where you're playing like a much lower standard the opposition, and you just like it's maybe not quite the walkover that you think it was going to be?
No, we had quite a lot, but to be perfectly honest, at that time, I don't remember us losing to any of the lower league teams that we ever drew in the cup. I don't know what it was, but I think Alec Miller always prepared us really well for the kind of games. But certainly, that was part of the run when we went to Stenhousemuir when they had beat St Johnstone and they had beat Aberdeen, and we went there and we were 4-0 up half time. The round before that, we went up to Montrose 1-2-0, and I don't remember us ever really losing to a lower league team. Or them really giving us a fright. I just felt as though we always kind of treated it right and won most of the games that we ever had.
I think that's something that's been said a lot about Alec Miller is just how prepared he was for every game, the amount of preparation that went into even just like scouting opponents, for example. So what did that look like for a player's perspective in terms of what he told you or what was required of you?
I think it was just a matter of making sure that getting into your minds that you didn't switch off, you didn't relax. So it was, nothing changed. It was the same preparation for playing against Rangers, for example, or playing against Celtic or Hearts or whoever it was. When you were going to play Montrose up at Montrose, there was no difference in terms of the preparation. You knew the players you were going to be playing against. You knew what their set pieces were going to be like. And I think it was a matter of kind of keeping on top of the mental attitude all the time. Making sure that there wasn't taking the foot off the gas or treating them lightly or anything like that. And I think it worked pretty well because, as I say, I don't remember us losing to many or any of the lower league teams when we ever drew them in the cup.
We've got Morton on Wednesday night, so just quickly looking ahead to that one. We'll do a quick prediction and David will speak to you more about your time at Hibs. Colin, how do you see the game going on Wednesday?
We'll win that comfortably. I don't think Morton are that good. I think I'm basing this on a boy I work with who's a Partick Thistle fan telling me last season they just kind of hired a load of boys at the juniors just to stay in the league, just like real hardy bunch of boys. I think they're very good at football. Like, you get what I mean? Like they're a solid bunch. And I think they're doing very well in the group so far either. I think they will beat off at Clyde maybe. So that doesn't say very much for them. So I think we'll win comfortably. 4-0.
I think we'll go with the strong team again.
I think he will. I think he's. I don't know if obviously the boy. What's his name? Buyang. He came on yesterday, so he's obviously available now. So he'll probably start, won't he? I would have thought he looked all right when he came on. He only had 10 minutes. He went round the keeper, but the boy got back on the line to knock it away. But I reckon he'll go strong, Gish, and then because we've got Norwich. That's the last game for the league. We've got Norwich at the weekend, haven't we? I reckon he'll go strong in that, and then he might push about it against Norwich because
that's the league comes in. Aye. What about you, Davey? How do you think it'll go on Wednesday night? How much you know about Morton?
I think they'll win. I think they'll win comfortably. Morton's Morton's one of the clubs now that seem to be in a bit of turmoil. They just about stayed up last year, and there's a lot of murmurings behind the scene there as well, as far as I'm led to believe. I know that Dougie Emery's not too happy with things there, and there's a lot of politics, I think, at that club. I don't think they're kind of all pulling in the same direction. So an early goal, and I think it'll be a comfortable victory for me as well.
And John, for you?
Do you know, I don't know. It's not that I'm concerned that Hibs will get beat or anything, but I think just before I got married, just before I had my stag do back 2016, Hibs got 3-0 off Morton, I'm sure, at Easter Road.
That's right, in the league.
In the February. And I think maybe one of the two other times I've seen Hibs play Morton recently was the Neil Lennon getting sent off for going for a square goal with Jim Duffy. And I think we maybe sneaked a 1-1 draw at Capello. Remember when Hibs put on buses for everyone, gave everyone Santa hats and
at Christmas, that's right.
At Christmas. So it'll probably be a boring 2-0 win to Hibs.
I'll take that. I think it'll be a decent game. I've not really paid much attention to Morton. My next door neighbour plays for Wraith, and he's not a big fan of Morton. He didn't think they were up to much. So,
in case everybody's listening, he's going to get his legs broken the next time.
Right, he'll no bother about that. He'll no bother. Right, Davie, so we'll come to you then. Your time at Hibs, how did the move come about, and how did you end up playing for the club?
I was down at Oxford. I had been down there for 2 years, and I was coming back up to Scotland, going back up the road. And believe it or not, that my dad worked in Diageo, Port Dundas, and one of the guys who used to sell the company turbines was Alec Ferguson's brother, Martin. So Martin was a salesman, got to know my dad over the years because obviously the love of football, chatting and different things like that. So he arranged for me to come up and go on a trial for Hibs. But I had been at Motherwell for a couple of weeks pre-season, and they had offered to sign me. So it kind of got fast-tracked a wee bit. And I went up to Arbroath to play a pre-season friendly against Arbroath. We won fairly comfortably, and I played quite well. And Alec Miller offered me a contract after the game. So that was kind of it. Martin Ferguson's brother was the go-between. He set it up and made sure that Alec knew I was available. Got me up for the friendly and offered me a contract after the game.
Was there much a decision to make between Hibs and Motherwell, or were you torn?
No, to be honest with you, I actually felt quite disappointed because Tommy McLean had tried to sign me when I left school as well, before I went down to Oxford. And when I came back up, I was there for 3 weeks and done my pre-season there, and I felt actually quite good there. I was enjoying my time. I knew the boys, but when Hibs came in, I just felt as though bigger club at that time, guys like Kano and John Collins and me, Mickey and Eddie May and all them had all come through the youth system. I just felt it felt right, it felt right, and I felt for wee Tommy McLean because he treated me really, really well and offered me a contract and all the rest of it. And I didn't want to look as if I was going behind his back or anything. So I actually went down on the Monday morning. I took the train and the bus into Motherwell to go in and see him, just to sit face to face to him and say, look, I'm really sorry, really appreciate what you've done to me, but I'm going to sign for Hibs. And he just looked at me and went, right, where you go then? That was it. Aye, just
that was you. The last time you spoke to him.
Aye, that was it. Aye, he wasn't happy. But I understand that because he had treated me well. But I had to make the decision I thought was right for me.
And what was your first season like at Hibs? What was the highlights, etc.?
My first 2 seasons really, I was just a reserve player. I was just a kid. I was only 18, so I broke into the team when I was, I think, 19. I played 2 games. I made my debut up at, in fact, I'd turned 20. I made my debut up at Pataudry after about a year and a half. We get beat 2-0 with Aberdeen, and Jim Beck gave me a football lesson. I couldn't get near him, literally couldn't get near him. And that was an eye-opener for me because I thought, I'm ready for the first team. And I realised that I really wasn't ready for the first team. We played against Wraith Rovers on the Wednesday night, and they put us out the League Cup. They were high flying first division at that time, and I never played again for about another year. And when I came back in, I came right out the blue, and played at Tynecastle in the New Year's Day derby, and it was the first live Edinburgh derby that was broadcast on Sky. And he just threw me right in out of nowhere. Couldn't believe it. Told me in the morning of the game, you're playing. We drew 1 each. Big Tom McIntyre scored a penalty in the bottom corner, and Foster and Ian Baird. No, it was Ferguson, Ian Ferguson, and Ian Baird were the two strikers, two monsters. Do you know what I mean? But that suited me because I was ready for the battle with they two anyway. You know, so played all right, and then was kind of in and out. And then the following season, I really kind of made my breakthrough. And then the next sort of 3 seasons, I played a fair bit here and there, you know. But I loved it. Absolutely loved my time there. Great club. I was living my dream, you know. I just wanted to be a football player. And to be able to then go up and play against the Rangers and Celtic and Hearts and playing derby matches, and because I went to watch football all my life, you know, I was a football supporter, so I was genuinely living the dream. I loved it. Just loved being a football player.
Who was the best player you played with at Hibs?
Steve Archibald by a million miles. He was unbelievable.
Second best. He's miles ahead of everyone.
He was miles ahead of anybody. Honestly, he was brilliant. We had wee Crunchy was a great wee player. Wee Kevin McAllister was a great player. But Darren Jackson was clever. You know, Darren could play up front, could play in the middle of the park. He was a really good player. But Stevie, the funny thing about Steve Archibald was I never rated him. You know, when I used to watch him play with Aberdeen, I never rated him. When he went to Tottenham, I never rated him. When he went to Barcelona, I never rated him. You'd have think I'd have fucking got it by the time he came to Hibs, wouldn't you?
We were at his Matthew were at his thing. He had a thing at Easter Road. What?
I know.
I
was invited. He invited me up. He invited me. I'd done a few things for Stevie over the last sort of 10, 15 years. I went to help to his coaching school and stuff like that in Glasgow. So he did, and he invited me up, but I had other things on. I just couldn't make it through because I was going to bring my boy through as well and meet him, you know. But he was a different person. See that I've never seen a player and never have and never will again. I don't think either coached or managed who had the most self-belief that I've ever seen in any football player I've ever experienced or came across. Just single-minded. You know, he trained himself a lot of the time. He would come in and days and warm up and all that kind of stuff. We were all, first time he came in, we were all kind of watching him, you know, and looking at him and, the fuck's he doing, you know? He doesn't want to train me or anything. And then other people start kind of buying into what he's doing, and they all want to do the same things as he's doing because you can see how good a player he is. Never misses games, fit, touch was unbelievable. Unbelievable, just bringing people into the game. But a special football player.
I bet he'd tell you he was the best player that you played with as well.
That's what I was going with.
That would have been some question to ask him, wouldn't it? I bet he didn't say Davie Farrell, that's for sure.
Did you ever get a shot in his Rolls Royce?
No, I did not. No, I did used to turn up on the odd occasion at training with it. No, I didn't. No, I was in Murder McLeod's Mercedes SLK a few times, right enough. He used to drink that me back half in Glasgow. I wasn't driving for the first couple of years I was at Hibs, so I used to get the train through or sometimes meet the Glasgow boys and come through. But no, he was a great guy, great player.
And what was Alec Miller like as a manager?
There was two Alec Millers. There was Alec Miller, the manager, and Alec Miller, the coach. Alec Miller, the coach, was miles ahead of his time. Really, you know, in terms of the things we spoke about, the preparation. We were doing things at Murray House College. We were doing our pre-season there and we trained there. So we were tapping into all the PE stuff that they had. So we were using heart monitors. We were getting blood oxygen testing, getting done at that time, which was kind of in the sort of a research phase. Mm-hmm. But we were using it so that we could sort of make us better in terms of our pre-season, our running, our fitness and all that kind of stuff. And Alec was really into that, you know, looking at things that other countries were doing. And, you know, we were doing pre-season. Some of our pre-season was done in the swimming pool, which was unheard of, you know. things like that at that time. And he was a great coach, really, really technical and knew the game. But the manager side of him, he had this, he treated everybody exactly the same. So what we spoke about earlier on, the kind of, some people need a real G up at half time and other people need the arm round. He didn't have that because every single person got treated the same. So there'd be guys that would maybe be needing a cuddle and they were getting lambasted. Because he was just doing the same to everybody. Everybody was scattergun, the whole place was getting it. Although he was very thoughtful and methodical, there was times when he could have been a better man manager, I think. He could have been your pal sometimes. He was always very standoffish. I met him last week. I met him at the game last week.
How's he doing?
He's doing well. He looked really well. He's looking really well. I met him and Darren and Big Ted at the game last week. Always good to see your old pals, It was good. But he's looking well. But as I say, the manager and the coach were two different guys.
Did you think he would have gone on to get a Champions League winner medal?
Sorry?
Did you think he would go on to get a Champions League medal?
Well, I know that's one of the things you'd obviously go, well, no, but I see as a coach, he was brilliant. It didn't surprise me that he got a big move to a big club because he really was technically very, very, very good. And he put on really good sessions and we were always very, very well drilled. We always had a really good shape about us. Defensively, we were always quite solid. That was another wee thing. It was a wee bit too pragmatic at times. We sometimes felt we could have been a wee bit more expansive as a group. And I think towards the end of his time at Hibs, it was the kind of time when he had actually changed his mentality a wee bit because we signed Crunchy and we signed Michael O'Neill. And we were basically playing with two wingers every week, out and out wingers. And it was myself and Brian in the middle of the park, or myself and Pat McGinley when he was there. And you had Ted and Darren up front, which, was a really attacking team at that time. We were just going to let them play almost, used to just don't move and let them, just give them the ball and let them do their magic. Which is what I was good at. I was good at that anyway, giving the ball to other players and let them do their magic.
It was a brilliant team to watch that one as well. I mean, like some of my best years watching Hibs, but like Jackson, McAllister and O'Neill were two of my favourites. I've always loved wingers. I've always loved wingers, and
they were out now.
Different class.
You couldn't get they two to come fucking back anyway, so they had to be two wingers going that way. No chance of they two running back away.
What was probably your highlight at Hibs? Like any game that stuck out for you?
I think the highlight was really the run to the League Cup final. I remember more about the semi-final than the final. Because I'd had my knee, I was terrible with injuries. Right through my whole career, I was terrible with injuries. I could list them from head to toe and I can go through every single one I had. And when I think back, I was injured more than I was fit a lot of the time. And I had a really bad knee knock. And I played with a big strapping in the semi-final at Tynecastle against Dundee United. Mm-hmm. And Alec Miller said to me the day before the game, he came up to me and he went, "Are you all right?" Because I was kind of hobbling a wee bit, but nothing was going to stop me playing. I was saying to Stuart Colley, give me a jag in my knee, strap it all up, and I'll be fine. Just make sure I'm playing. So we did that, jagged my knee, got a big strap on, and I honestly remember it. I was warming up and running across to the old shed at Tynecastle, and at that time the Hibs fans had congregated in there. And I remember seeing people looking at me and going, "Yeah, his fucking knee, the big strap, the big bandage on his knee." My baby came back, and then during the game, Alec Miller says to me on the Tuesday, "Just don't let Billy McKinlay play." So Billy McKinlay was their playmaker. Badger was a really good football player. He says, "Don't let him play." So it was almost, he was kind of saying to me, "Just man mark him." And I did that the whole game. I never gave him a kick. I just was all over him. As soon as he touched the ball, I smashed him. If take more than one touch, you can smash again. And that was my philosophy in that game. He is not playing. And we overpowered them. We actually overpowered them that night. And Darren scored a great goal and Jim Layton made a couple of great saves. And I remember a lot about that night because I felt as though I had achieved something. I felt as though you've made it now. I'd been a football player for, at that time, probably 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that night, I sat back in the dressing room and I just thought, you've made it, you've done it. And then the cup final, obviously, with the Rangers game, it was a really, really tight game. The first half was a bit of a non-event. The second half, Durante scored. You get a wee kind of lucky 1-2 and lobbed the goalkeeper, lobbed Big Jim. And we then scored out of the blue. Big Ted still claims it was his goal, but it was going by the post, and it was like Big McPherson, I think it was. Put in his own net. Big Ted still says it was his goal, but definitely wasn't getting in. And see for 15 minutes, they were rocking. We had them. I mean, we knew it. We could feel it. We couldn't score. Dan was through in the goalie, hit the ball across the goal, and Maxwell saved it, and it broke behind Big Ted. Blocking put in the box, and I thought I was going to score a header. I believe it or not. Come in and I'm going, I've got this, and Big Goff just came in and absolutely fucking smashed me. So, and that was it. And we had about 10 minutes to go. Obviously, McCoy's comes on, lucky boss, scores the overhead kick, and it's done, and the disappointment meant that I kind of forgot a lot about that night and what happened after that compared to the elation of the semi-final going through there. But great times.
That was brutal, that cup final for that, because like you say, that there was that spell after we scored.
We had them.
It looked like it was going to happen. You could sense
we had
it.
Them. We had to score. You feel it yourself. He's a player. You feel it. You also feel it the other way. You know it's coming. Playing at Celtic Park, playing at Ibrox, and you've been against the wall for 15 minutes. You're sitting in your head. You're going, "Fuck me, when are they going to score?" You're trying your best. You're trying everything you possibly can. The whole momentum was coming on top of you. And you kind of know there's a goal coming. And that was the way we felt. I felt that day. I thought, we're going to score. And Walter just changed it. See the change? The change just knocked our momentum, and it gave the Rangers fans a lift. And all of a sudden, there was just a wee change in the game, and that was it. They beat us 2-1.
That was McCoy's first game after a massive injury as well. And broke his
leg
or something like
that. 18 weeks. I broke his leg for Scotland against Portugal. And that was his first game back. Typical.
Bastard.
I know. I still remind him it.
and then when it came to leaving Hibs, David, how did that come about, and what was that like?
It actually happened quite quickly. It was a funny one. I'd been offered a 2-year contract. But again, I had been injured and I had been in and out the team, and I just felt as though my time was up. So I hadn't signed the contract, and Alec Miller says to me, Dundee United are in for you, and St Johnstone are in for you. So I thought, it's fine, no bother. So my agent goes to Tannadice and agrees a deal with them. So I'm signing a 3-year contract with Dundee United. It's a swap deal. Brian Welsh is coming to Hibs, right? So I'm fine, perfect. Does me no bother. And then the next thing, my agent gets a phone call. Deal's off. And I'm thinking, what the fuck's happened there? We've agreed the money. Everything's all sorted. Jim McLean had put the mockers on it for some reason. I've actually wrote about it in the book. I've got my suspicions why. But for some reason, at the last minute, the deal was off. So I go into training the next morning and I says to Alec Miller, what's happening? He went, I don't know. He went, the deal's done. I went, the deal's not done. I said, I've been told last night I was meant to be getting up there. Everything's getting sorted. And then before I know it, Jim McLean's pulled the plug. And he went, right, okay, let me make a phone call. So he phones and he comes back and he goes, deal's off. I went, right, okay. But so by then I know they don't want me now anyway. So it's time for me to move. Partick Thistle had just been relegated. Murdo MacLeod was the manager there. And Murdo phoned me. He went, look, Alex said that you're available. Do you fancy coming down to the Division 1 at that time? So I thought, I didn't really want to go down. But Thistle was only 10 minutes from my house. and they were offering me more money than Hibs. And there was assurances that they were going to spend some money and bring in some more Premier League players to go back up. So I thought, we'll go for it. And within 6 months, Partick Thistle nearly went bust. So it was a bad move, I loved Partick Thistle. I loved the club. I saw myself when I was there. I saw myself being there for 10 years. I became captain, and I thought it was going to be a natural progression. I would be the coach, and then I would move into being the assistant manager, and then I was going to be their manager, and it felt right. And it just went absolutely tits up because of the financial situation.
So and this wouldn't be the only club for it to happen to.
Well, not with me anyway. I put 4 into liquidation.
Do you think you were maybe asking for too much in your reasons?
By the way, it's incredible. I went to Partick Thistle, right, and they within 6 months nearly went bust. So I went to Hibs. I just signed for Hibs, and Mollis Mercer tried to take them out. So there was a hands-off Hibs campaign. So they nearly got wiped out. I go to Partick Thistle. They nearly get wiped out.
Maybe that's why Dundee United didn't want you.
By the way, I go for Partick Thistle to Airdrie. Airdrie, they go bust. Right? So I'm thinking, brilliant, what am I going to do next? I'll move into coaching. So where do I go when I start my coaching career? Fucking Gretna.
You got a wee move to Hibs, maybe like the benefits.
Honestly, God, you couldn't make it up the amount of clubs that went into liquidation or financial trouble after I went. It wasn't as if I was on megabucks either. That's the worst of it.
And how did your book come about? I know you did a blog for a while. And then...
the book went really well. The blog started because I was fed up reading and listening to shite on the telly with ex-players. Guys that were pundits that literally didn't have a clue about the game. They were only on the telly because of who they were. And it really did my head in. So I thought, I'm going to start writing. So I started writing the blog, and it absolutely took off. People loved it. So I was obviously using Twitter for that. I was using Twitter at that time. And a publisher just approached me and said, look, we love your blog. Punters love your blog. Do you want to write a book? And I went, well, what do you want me to write a book about? I went, well, just all the stuff that you have in your blog, just put it into a book. So the idea at the start was all different chapters just about different things in football and different experiences in football. And when I started writing it, I just basically started writing my story. So for when I was 16, I signed for Oxford and then told the stories and told how things developed, and just like we're doing now, telling you the stories about what happened when I signed for them. And before I know it, I'd written my whole football career, basically. And it went really well. People seem to quite like it. But
are you still writing now? You still updating your blog?
I've done a couple of wee things here and there. I actually took a writing class. Somebody asked me to help out doing a writing class. I've done a few things for I Write. They've got a big book festival in Glasgow. And occasionally, if something really fucking annoys me, I'll write about it and put it onto Twitter, But I came off Twitter because when I was just at the time when the book had just sort of passed its peak, and Irvin Welsh was brilliant when I was writing the book. I spoke to him a couple of times, and he says to me, you've really got a short window with the book. You've got to kind of hit it hard, really, hammer the PR and the advertising and do everything online and do whatever you can. So you've got 3 months really to sell as many as you can, and then the next 3 months sell what you've not got rid of yet. So it's just a kind of 6 month window to get rid of as many as you could. So he says that he then starts writing his next book before that 6 months up. But I was so drained by the end of writing the book and everything else, and then I got the job at St Mirren. So I had to stop all the I was doing a lot of public appearances, and I was going to a couple of things at Hibs and a couple of signings at Partick Thistle and all the clubs I'd been at. And so I had to stop all that, which meant reining in all the different public appearances and different podcasts and stuff like that. And then the fickleness again of the fan that we talk about. That when I was assistant at St Mirren, I was only putting things on Twitter occasionally, wee things, well done today, great support, that usual shite that players write and assistant managers write and that kind of stuff. We go again next week, that fucking statement, that bollocks you hear, utter bollocks, isn't it?
I know.
So I put a tweet out, and it was the weekend that we were playing Morton. Now we had just went on a run. St Mirren hadn't won at home for something like 9 months. And we won 4 games in the trot at home. And the third one of them, we beat Morton, which is the derby game. So I put a tweet out that night because Celtic and Rangers were playing the next day. Now, I've never hidden the fact that I'm a Celtic supporter. It's never been a problem, right? And I put a tweet out that night saying, great start to the derby weekend. 1 down, 1 to go. Right? Meaning the derby tomorrow. And they went fucking mental. What are you doing tweeting about that? You're at St Mirren, you're employed by us. And I'm thinking, you mad? We've just beat fucking Morton. And you're worrying about the fact that I'm going to watch another team playing football tomorrow. You go and watch your team the day. What's up with me going to watch my team tomorrow? And I thought, do you know what? Fuck this, I don't need it. So I came off Twitter. And I still look at Twitter and I still have a wee nosy now and again to see what's going on. And as I say, occasionally if something really annoys me, I'll write about it and throw it onto Twitter just to annoy people. But I genuinely thought to myself, I don't need that. If they're going to start all that crap, I'll just come off altogether. And then I kind of just get out of the habit of being on it. And it's a big thing now to go, right, I'm going to go back on it again, and actually be functioning on it.
You're better off with it, honestly.
I must admit, I think I probably am, because I'll only get myself into trouble anyway.
Well, it kind of segues nicely into our last wee bit for you, David, before we let you go for the night, because we've probably already kept you a wee bit longer than we'd intended to already. But
I've probably spoke too much.
I know, you're all right. Folk have tweeted in. So the first question I've got is for Stephen McDonough. He said, in your book, which you really enjoyed, you seem to have played through pain for about half your Hibs career.
Yeah.
Was this quite common? Players nowadays seem to be out injured more often and for longer. A bunch of flowery blouses he's put. Do you think that's the case?
I think the difference now that players are very mollycoddled. They're looked after really well. I don't see modern players running through brick walls with injuries the way that we did back in the day. I don't think they would do it. I think they'd take a wee step back and go, I'm no fit. Yeah, I experienced it, in the coaching side and the assistant manager side. Sometimes Alec and I would be looking at each other going, he can play with that. Because I know he would have played with it and he knows I would have played with it. And you're looking at him, you're trying to convince players sometimes to, you'll be all right, you'll be fine. It's a bit niggly, and you're going, you want to lamp them one, but there's nothing you can do, and it's definitely changed that. It's a different game.
Then we've got one, it's not so much a question, but this is for Lemon, who said you were pretty much a trailblazer for the Matty Jack role, although you were a better footballer. And then
that.
Raymond says, have you ever had somebody say, do you know Bishop Briggs, driver? So you could say, I knew him as a priest.
All right. I think that was meant to be a joke, aye.
Aye.
Right. Okay. When you're a Glasgow taxi driver, you get Bishop Briggs all the time. So
he says his dad waited years for the same thing with Cannon Mills and just got a blank look at the retort. He was most disappointed.
See, when you're out in the taxi, now that we're talking about it, because we were talking about this on another podcast the other day, what's the best icebreaker of a conversation you've had with someone in the back? Because you know how usually it's like, oh, you've been busy the day.
What time do you finish?
What time do you finish?
There's very, very few icebreakers. To be perfectly honest, almost everybody says, what time you on to, what time you finishing, have you been busy? Yeah. It's honestly, very few people say anything other than that. And then go, oh, there's that question everybody asks you, taxi driver. Why did you ask it then?
Because it's funny, because I asked my brother-in-law's a taxi driver, and I'd said to him before we got that question, and he said almost the exact same. That's all any cunt ever says, is that.
That is.
Say fuck all else.
Genuinely. It's not as if you're going to go in and go to if you're dinner driver.
Yeah. I will next time.
Right, me too.
Wordy McWordface asked, did it ever bother you being thought of as the limited enforcer in the Hibs team?
No, I loved it.
Just enjoyed the role?
Yep, loved it. I mean, I always felt as though that I had a wee bit more than that. I did think I could play a wee bit. But I used to play up on the kind of being the hard man in the team role anyway, so no, it didn't bother me the slightest.
Did any of your many injuries come about for being that midfield enforcer? Or were you just unlucky with injuries?
No, I was dead unlucky with injuries. I had one of the bodies that just broke up, the hamstring tears and groin tears and back bursts and all that kind of stuff. But I did get a few injuries where I went for tackles sometimes that you think probably shouldn't have, I broke a bone in my foot doing it Queen of the South when I went into this was when I was at Sunra, and I went into a tackle I should never went into. The goalie was winning it all day long, but I thought if I could just get enough of it, I might score, And he absolutely fucking smashed me. And you get up, and nowadays they don't get up, they roll about and they look at the camera and all that. We used to get up, it was like a badge of honour, you get up because you don't want him to know that he's hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And I got up and ended up playing on, and it wasn't until after the game that I found out that I'd actually broke a bone in my foot. So it's just one of these things, it is what it is.
Guinness 2022 says you played in that superb early to mid-90s Hibs side, which contained some real talent: Jackson, Keith Wright, O'Neill, Weir, Crunchy, Leighton, and on his day the Mercurial Super Joe. Was only a runner-up 1993 League Cup a poor return for such a talented squad?
I actually seen that question earlier on, and I was thinking about it. I suppose when you look at how good a team we actually had, you could argue that. But again, you're still competing with basically Celtic and Rangers all the time. And with the resources they had, even though the gap might not be as big as it is now, there was always still a gap. And even, you think about that time as well, the Rangers team at that time was, they were getting to the semi-final of the European Cup, They had a really, really good team. Celtic were struggling a wee bit. But I think it's difficult. A club like Hibs should be winning a cup now and again. That's generally what you're looking for. And if you can qualify for Europe, I think you've had a brilliant season. We tended to get to semi-finals, got to a couple of finals. I think we probably did, without winning that League Cup, as much as we probably could have.
Aye. Right, and last question. This is for Colin's brother-in-law. It says, a TX4 or Merc, what's your preference?
Well, that's actually very relevant, that question, because until 2 weeks ago, I had a TX4. But Glasgow have imposed this fucking low emission zone and forced us all into buying newer motors. So I got a Merc up for London 2 weeks ago. So I would still say TX4, but unfortunately I've had to scrap it because Glasgow City Council, in their wisdom, have made us all change our vehicles.
And I think we could have had more hot days like this if we just bothered. David, that's us out of time. Thanks very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you tonight and hearing your stories. What's next for you? You back to work tomorrow?
Back to work tomorrow, aye. Back to work tomorrow. Game of golf on Wednesday. Work Thursday, and then football at the weekend, probably.
Aye, happy days. Well, we're away to record our next one where we're going to do our league predictions or our season predictions for Hibs. So that's next up for us tonight. Subscribers can get that. If you want to hear that, go to longbangers.hubwave.net. It's only £3 a month. You can sign up. Davey, thanks again. Colin, John, thanks for your time as well. And we'll see you next time.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink